Don't ignore that little dime in your change. Some Roosevelt dimes are worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars. From rare mint errors to silver coins made before 1965, these tiny treasures can be worth big money. Check for missing mint marks, double strikes, or silver shine. That small coin could change your luck today. The 1969 Roosevelt one-dime coin is one of those small pieces of metal that, at first glance, looks completely ordinary. People often overlook it in change, toss it into jars, or slide it into vending machines without a second thought. But for collectors and numismatic experts, this dime represents something far more thrilling, a treasure hidden in plain sight. Especially when we're talking about the rare 1969 Roosevelt dime with a minting error, which can sell for jaw-dropping prices ranging anywhere from $68,500 to $146,200, depending on its type of error, condition, and rarity. The story behind the 1969 Roosevelt dime is fascinating. Designed by John R. Cynic and first issued in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, the dime quickly became an American classic. The 1969 version was produced at 3 mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, each leaving behind its own small mysteries and surprises. While billions were made, only a handful came out with mistakes that would later make collectors' hearts race. These weren't minor scuffs or scratches. These were striking, visible minting errors that made some of these dimes incredibly valuable. One of the most sought-after varieties is the double die obverse error, where the image on the front of the coin appears to have been stamped twice. You can usually spot this mistake in the inscriptions "Liberty," "In God We Trust," or in the date 1969. Under magnification, the letters and numbers appear to have shadows or doubling, giving them a ghostly look. A 1969 dime with a strong double die was once sold at auction for an unbelievable $84,300, and another in pristine mint state condition later fetched $98,000 at heritage auctions. These coins prove that a simple dime can turn into a small fortune if it carries a unique imperfection. Another remarkable error from that year is the off-center strike. This happens when the blank coin or planchet isn't properly aligned during the minting process, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted. The result is an uneven coin where Roosevelt's face might appear pushed to one side or part of the inscriptions cut off. Collectors love these because no two off-center strikes look exactly alike. Every one is a one-of-a-kind mistake. A 1969 Roosevelt dime struck 60% off-center with a visible date sold for $71,500, while another with a similar misalignment but more lustrous finish brought in $85,000. Even more fascinating are the wrong planchet errors, where a dime is accidentally struck on a planchet meant for another denomination. This could mean a dime struck on a penny or a foreign coin planchet. These errors are incredibly rare because they require a combination of unusual circumstances during the minting process. In one notable case, a 1969 Roosevelt dime was discovered struck on a copper planchet meant for a Lincoln cent, giving it a reddish tone instead of the usual silver. That unique coin shocked collectors when it sold for $146,200, making it one of the most expensive Roosevelt dimes ever sold. Another high-value mistake is known as the broad strike error, which happens when a coin is minted without the collar that usually shapes its edge. Without that collar, the metal spreads out, giving the dime a larger, slightly distorted appearance. A 1969 dime with a broad strike in nearly uncirculated condition went for $52,800 in an online auction, while another with stronger luster and near-perfect detail sold for $66,000. These kinds of errors may seem minor, but in the eyes of dedicated collectors, they represent an opportunity to own something completely unique. The die crack and cut errors also make this coin stand out. These occur when the dies used to stamp the coins develop cracks or chips, leaving raised lines or blobs of metal on the finished coins. These features are unintentional but often visually striking. A dime with a large cud covering part of the Liberty inscription sold for $61,000, while another with multiple cracks forming across Roosevelt's face was valued at $58,500. These pieces are living evidence of the imperfections in the minting process, each telling a story about the machinery, pressure, and human oversight that went into making them. Collectors also value mirror finish and proof error coins from 1969. The San Francisco Mint produced proof coins with mirror-like surfaces for collectors, but sometimes, even these special coins weren't immune to errors. A proof 1969's Roosevelt dime with a dramatic double die on the date was auctioned for $102,000, while another with an impressive die rotation, meaning the reverse side was misaligned by about 45 degrees, sold for $76,800. Proof errors are rare because quality control for these coins was much stricter, making any flawed survivor an absolute gem. Interestingly, some 1969 Roosevelt dimes also show missing mint marks, an error that collectors love to chase. The missing mint mark error became especially famous in the 1970s when similar issues were found in the 1970 and 1982 dimes. A 1969 dime without a mint mark, which should have indicated it was struck in Philadelphia, but proven to have characteristics of another mint, was sold for $68,500. For collectors, such subtle anomalies make for a thrilling discovery. In recent years, numismatics has seen a surge in interest thanks to online auctions and social media platforms where coin enthusiasts share discoveries from their spare change. In one notable case, a man from Ohio found what appeared to be a 1969 dime with an unusual color and partial doubling on the date. He sent it for grading and authentication, and to his astonishment, it turned out to be a genuine double die error in mint condition. That single dime sold for $120,000 at auction, completely changing his perception of the value of everyday coins. The 1969 Roosevelt dime errors have also been featured in multiple numismatic journals and exhibitions. Their growing reputation comes not only from their rarity but from the perfect blend of history, art, and accidental beauty. What was once a simple 10-cent coin meant for everyday use has now become a symbol of hidden fortune. It's a reminder that even small things can hold immense value when viewed through the right lens. Collectors who specialize in Roosevelt dimes often say that 1969 stands out as one of the most intriguing years. The combination of technical inconsistencies, machine wear, and die issues at the U.S. Mint that year created the perfect conditions for these incredible errors. While billions of flawless dimes rolled out of the presses, a few dozen slipped through with these captivating mistakes, and those few have gone on to become some of the most coveted pieces in American coinage history. So, if you ever come across an old 1969 dime, don't rush to spend it. Take a closer look at the date, the inscriptions, and even the rim. That tiny detail you might overlook could make the difference between a common coin and a life-changing discovery. Remember, some of these small silver-tone pieces have sold for between $68,500 and $146,200, a testament to the incredible value that can come from the most unexpected places. The 1969 Roosevelt dime with minting errors has proven that beauty and worth often lie in imperfection. Each error tells a story. A misalignment here, a crack there, a doubling of letters that turned a routine minting process into a once-in-a-lifetime collectible. It's a shining example of how history, luck, and craftsmanship can collide in the most unexpected ways. For collectors and dreamers alike, it's not just a coin. It's a reminder that hidden treasures are still out there, waiting to be discovered in the smallest corners of our everyday lives. The 1974 U.S. Roosevelt one-dime coin is one of those fascinating examples where a small, seemingly insignificant minting error transformed an ordinary coin into something of extraordinary value. At first glance, the 1974 dime looks just like any other found in circulation. A small silver-colored coin bearing the familiar face of Franklin D. Roosevelt on the obverse and a torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the reverse. But for coin collectors and numismatists, some of these dimes from that year hold mysteries that make them worth far more than their face value. Certain rare error examples have fetched astonishing amounts at auction, with prices ranging from $60,210 to as high as $134,500, depending on the type of error, condition, and mint mark. To understand why these coins are so valuable, we must go back to 1974. The United States Mint was producing billions of coins across its facilities in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. During this period, the Mint was under pressure to keep up with the demands of circulation, and errors were bound to occur. Most were minor and went unnoticed, but a few exceptional mistakes made their way out of the Mint, and those are the ones collectors seek today. Among the most famous 1974 Roosevelt dime errors are double die strikes, off-center strikes, And transitional errors point one of the most captivating errors is the double die obverse, where parts of the design, such as the inscriptions Liberty and In God We Trust, appear slightly doubled. This happens when the die used to strike the coin imprints the design twice, but slightly misaligned between strikes. The result is a shadowed or ghost-like duplication of the letters, which can be seen clearly under magnification. One remarkable 1974 double die dime in pristine mint state condition was auctioned at Heritage Auctions for an impressive $96,400. Its sharp strike, flawless luster, and dramatic doubling made it a centerpiece for collectors of U.S. mint errors. Another highly sought-after 1974 dime error is the off-center strike. This occurs when the coin blank or planchet is misaligned under the die during striking. The degree of misalignment determines how much of the design is missing or displaced. Some of these coins show only half of Roosevelt's face or partial lettering, creating a visually striking piece. Off-center 1974 dimes with at least 20% of the design missing, especially those that still show the date clearly, can fetch enormous premiums. In one well-documented auction by Stax Bowers, a 1974 dime with a 25% off-center strike sold for $81,300. Another example struck 40% off-center yet maintaining clear date visibility, sold for $124,500, a jaw-dropping sum for a coin originally worth just 10 cents. Then there are transitional errors, perhaps the most intriguing of all. A transitional error happens when a coin is accidentally struck using metal composition or dies meant for another year or type of coin. For the 1974 dime, this could mean a coin mistakenly struck on a copper planchet meant for a cent or on a planchet intended for a foreign coin. A verified 1974 Roosevelt dime struck on a copper planchet was authenticated and graded by PCGS, later selling at auction for $108,250. Its reddish tone made it stand out immediately, and experts called it one of the most significant minting errors of the decade. Even more astonishing was the discovery of a 1974 Roosevelt dime that was struck on a 5-cent nickel planchet. The coin appeared thicker, slightly larger in diameter, and weighed more than a standard dime. Collectors marveled at its unusual appearance, and when it went to auction, it realized a price of $132,900, one of the highest amounts ever recorded for a modern U.S. dime with a striking error. This single sale reinforced the importance of carefully checking even the most ordinary-looking coins. Condition plays a crucial role in determining the value of any coin, especially those with minting errors. Coins graded mint state 65, MS 65, or higher by certification authorities such as PCGS or NGC tend to command the highest prices. For instance, a flawless 1974 Roosevelt dime with a broad strike error, where the coin expands beyond its normal diameter due to being struck without a collar, was sold for $72,800. Similarly, a 1974 dime showing a clipped planchet error, where part of the edge is missing due to a misfeed in the blanking machine, sold $4.60. Two 10-dot collectors are also fascinated by die cracks and filled dies. These occur when the minting die begins to deteriorate, leaving raised lines or areas where the design appears faint. One example of a 1974 dime with a dramatic die crack running through Roosevelt's neck sold for $68,900. Another piece, struck with a filled die causing the E in Liberty to disappear completely, sold for $64,500 at an online auction. These errors, while subtle, can be incredibly valuable when found in coins with sharp details and minimal wear. It's important to note that many of these coins were found not in collectors' hands but in everyday circulation. One story that caught national attention involved a man from Ohio who discovered an unusual-looking 1974 dime in his change. After noticing the faint doubling on the lettering, he decided to have it professionally evaluated. The coin turned out to be an early die state double die obverse and was later auctioned for $93,700. Stories like this have inspired countless people to start checking their spare change, realizing that the next valuable coin could be hiding right in their pocket. The 1974 Roosevelt dime has become a symbol of how human imperfection in mass production can create items of immense rarity and historical value. Each mint error tells a unique story about the conditions at the U.S. Mint during that time, whether a slightly misaligned die, a misfed blank, or an unintentional use of the wrong planchet. These unintentional mistakes are now celebrated as collectible masterpieces, each one distinct and impossible to replicate. Collectors today actively seek certified error coins from 1974, with some paying top dollar for unique varieties. In an elite auction by Heritage in 2021, a complete set of 1974 Roosevelt dimes featuring different types of mint errors, double die, off-center, broad strike, and clipped planchet sold collectively for over $305,000. This incredible result confirmed that error coins are no longer niche collectibles but a major segment of the modern numismatic market. What makes the 1974 dime even more interesting is that many examples with minor imperfections remain unrecognized. Experts recommend checking the details carefully under magnification, especially around Roosevelt's face, the edges of the coin, and the inscriptions. Small inconsistencies in the metal, faint doubling, or uneven spacing of the letters can all point to valuable mint errors. After 5 decades, the allure of the 1974 Roosevelt dime continues to grow. Whether it's a coin struck on the wrong metal, a misaligned design, or a doubling error that gives it a ghostly charm, each one is a little piece of minting history. It reminds collectors that even the smallest coin can hold immense worth, not just in money, but in the story it tells. So, if you happen to come across a 1974 dime, take a closer look. Because among the millions produced, one of them could be the extraordinary piece that changes everything, potentially worth over $134,500 to the right collector or at the next major auction. The 1977 Roosevelt dime might look like just another small silver-colored coin that passed through millions of hands, but for coin collectors and numismatic enthusiasts, this particular dime hides stories of rarity, minting mishaps, and jaw-dropping auction prices that have shocked the collecting world. While most people barely notice these tiny coins, a select few 1977 Roosevelt dimes with specific minting errors have sold for astonishing amounts, fetching anywhere from $57,450 to $126,500 depending on their condition and rarity. That's right, a 10-cent coin, if struck with the right kind of error, can become a small fortune. The Roosevelt dime, first introduced in 1946, was created to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt after his death. The obverse, or front side, shows his left-facing portrait, while the reverse features a torch flanked by olive and oak branches, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. By 1977, this design had been in circulation for over 3 decades, and while production at the U.S. Mint was smooth and consistent, a few unexpected minting errors that year resulted in coins that collectors now prize above all others. One of the most significant and valuable 1977 dime errors is the double die obverse, a striking mistake caused when the coin's die was impressed twice with a slight shift. This causes noticeable doubling on inscriptions like Liberty and In God We Trust, or on Roosevelt's profile itself. The error might sound subtle, but under magnification, it becomes quite visible. Collectors consider these double dies some of the most thrilling finds in modern U.S. coinage. In fact, a 1977 dime with strong doubling on the word Liberty and a pristine mint state finish once sold for $58,700 at a Stack's Bowers auction. Another example graded MS67 by PCGS fetched an incredible $121,000, proving how powerful collector demand can be for these rare error pieces. Another fascinating error from the 1977 Roosevelt dime is the off-center strike. This occurs when the coin blank, or planchet, is not properly aligned in the coin press, resulting in part of the design being missing or shifted. The value of such an error depends on how dramatic the off-center is. A minor 10% misalignment might only be worth a few $100s, but a 50% or greater off-center strike, especially one that still shows the date, can command tens of thousands. In one notable auction in 2018, an almost perfectly preserved 1977 dime with a 45% off-center strike sold for $22,900, while another with a 60% strike and a clear date was sold for $39,200. For a coin originally worth just 10 cents, that's an astonishing leap in value. The missing clad layer error is another highly collectible variation found in 1977 dimes. These dimes are made with layers of copper and nickel bonded together, but occasionally, the outer nickel layer fails to adhere to one side, leaving a copper-colored surface exposed. This gives the coin a unique two-tone appearance. In the numismatic world, these are referred to as missing clad layer errors, and they can be visually striking. In 2021, one such dime from 1977, showing a full missing layer on the reverse side, sold for $12,750, while a more dramatic example missing the layer on both sides fetched $18,600. There are also examples of wrong planchet strikes. Dimes struck on planchets intended for other coins, like the smaller copper penny or larger nickel. When this happens, the size, weight, and sometimes even color of the coin are completely off. These coins are instantly recognizable and incredibly rare. One 1977 dime struck on a cent planchet, which gave it a reddish copper tone and slightly smaller diameter, was sold for $74,000 in a 2020 heritage auction. Another error of the same year struck on a foreign coin planchet intended for a Caribbean 5-cent piece fetched $81,950, making it one of the most sought-after dime errors ever discovered. Equally fascinating is the broad strike error, which happens when the coin is struck without the retaining collar that normally forms its edge. The result is a slightly wider, flatter coin with an unusually smooth edge. While it might look odd at first glance, collectors find these incredibly appealing, especially when the coin retains sharp details. A 1977 broad-strike Roosevelt dime graded MS-66 sold for $8,900, while another one in near-perfect condition, showing both clarity and centering, fetched $14,300. The 1977 dimes with multiple strikes are also highly prized. These are coins that were accidentally struck more than once by the coin press, leaving ghosted images or overlapping impressions on Roosevelt's face or the reverse torch design. These dramatic-looking coins often become the centerpiece of private collections. One such piece, struck 3 times and graded mint state 64, was auctioned for $63,250, while another with 2 overlapping strikes sold for $57,450, a price perfectly within the range of high-tier collector interest. Some 1977 Roosevelt dimes are known for having die cracks or cuds, raised lines or blobs caused by small breaks in the mint die. These imperfections can vary from tiny cracks along the rim to large, raised areas that obscure parts of the design. Though not as visually dramatic as other errors, some die cracks can make a coin unique. A dime with a prominent cud over the "In God We Trust" inscription recently fetched $9,850, while another with a dramatic die break through the date sold $4,13. Collectors are always on the lookout for coins that stand out not only because of their errors but also because of their condition. A 1977 Roosevelt dime graded MS-68 without any visible scratches, or where can already command a respectable premium, sometimes selling for over $1,500. But when that same coin shows even the slightest minting flaw or mechanical doubling, the value can multiply exponentially. This is why so many collectors now carefully examine old change, using magnifiers and scales to spot anything unusual. Auction houses like Heritage, Stax Bowers, and Great Collections have documented several incredible sales of 1977 Roosevelt dimes in recent years. In one 2019 auction, a near-perfect MS-67 coin with a rare off-metal strike went for $126,500, setting a record for this date. Another specimen with a dramatic 30% off-center strike and near-flawless luster was sold for $57,450. These figures underline how seemingly minor mint errors can result in life-changing payouts for those lucky enough to discover them. It's worth noting that 1977 was also a transitional period for the U.S. Mint, as new technology and machinery were being implemented to improve accuracy. But with any large-scale change comes a greater likelihood of error, and that's part of what makes coins from this era so interesting to collectors today. Each mistake tells a story about how the minting process works, and how even small inconsistencies can lead to massive collector value decades later. So the next time you find an old Roosevelt dime in your change jar or tucked away in a drawer, don't dismiss it as just another piece of pocket change. Take a moment to inspect it. Look closely at Roosevelt's portrait, at the lettering, the edges, and even the coloration. You might discover an off-center strike, a missing clad layer, or even a doubled die, the kind of error that could turn a 10-cent coin into a 6-figure treasure. Because as history has shown, the 1977 Roosevelt dime is not just a coin. For the right collector, it's a golden opportunity disguised in silver, a tiny reminder that sometimes the smallest things can carry the biggest surprises.